One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Is this clip? Is that, or do you want to move? Hey, Chris. Morning. You got like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, yeah. 15 maybe? Yeah, I know. Yes, and if you can't get back in, I'll maybe let you in. I'll think about it. You can't get out, can you? Well, you can at least go on that balcony, maybe. They're all locked.
So we'll change the source up in the controller. So. Yeah. Full XM. No, it'll just be clip. And just play clip 1 for now. Cool. Thank you. Bye. Alright, so we got 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. I might just take this out.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Hello, everybody. Good morning from Allianz Field. Welcome to Loons Inside Training presented by BMW. What a fabulous, glorious day it is today. First of all, to be back in Allianz Field, inside Stadium Club, in this beautiful stadium that we call home here for Minnesota United. The sun is shining, full team training about to get going. Just want to give you a little heads up on what we have going on for you today. A lot of special guests, special interviews, of course, the live look-ins of the training, which is the most important part of today, so you guys can get a nice little look at the team, at the field. It's in excellent shape, and of course, Allianz Field is in tremendous shape as well. So thank you all for joining us today. We are excited about the opportunity to bring this to you live from the Stadium Club presented by BMW. So we're going to take a look at 2021, talk about the team training. We're going to have a special interview with CEO Chris Wright. We're going to have Manny Lagos on here as well, and we're going to break it all down for you and get a little look into 2021. So let's kick it off. I'm going to be joined right now, right here to my left, by the CEO of Minnesota United, Chris Wright. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure you feel the same way I do as far as getting back into Allianz Field. The sun is shining, the field looks fabulous, and a home opener coming up on Sunday. So what is your feeling just walking in today to this beautiful place, knowing it's back to the Loons at home?
It sort of took me back. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Inside Training. And we're so pleased to be able to do this. And Kendra, thank you for hosting today. It sort of took me back to 2019 in terms of when the stadium was built, why it was built the way that it was, the fact that we accepted 20,000 people per game. We sold out every single game at Allianz Field in 2019. ESPN voted us the best experience in the MLS in 2019, over 30 awards for the stadium. And we took that run to our first ever playoff game, unfortunately losing to the LA Galaxy. And then 2020 hit, and the stadium was pretty much as we saw it today. It was empty, with no fans, and the emotions around working through a COVID-related 2020 and all that meant to the club and to its fans. And the real hardship of not being able to accept fans into the stadium. And so when I walk in today, I walk in thinking about, wow, our first game is coming. We're going to be able to have some subset of our fans back in the stadium. And the return of opening those gates to our fans on Saturday when we play against RSL is so incredibly meaningful given all of the times that we've been through over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, and I feel like we sort of felt like we were going to turn the page into 2021 and it was going to magically go back to what it was in 2019. It's not quite so, but we're going to get there eventually. I think we're working our way back to normalcy. And I remember last season when Cal and I would do home games up here that, God bless his soul, God bless his heart, Tony De Lorenzo would say, and the gates are open, and you're used to these people flooding in, and the brew hall people are just clamoring to get to their seat to see the team warming up. And he still did it every home game, but it just didn't quite have the same feel. So I can't wait for Saturday's home opener at this beautiful stadium. But let's talk a little bit about the season opener on the road against Seattle. A lot of buildup around that game. And I'm not going to ask you to break it all down X's and O's, but what did that just feel like to know that team was going back to Seattle where they lost the Western Conference Final? Not the result, not the score line people were hoping for and expecting, but what did you see from the season opener?
Well, I mean, 2020 was hard on everybody, but the one thing that 2020 did for us was it allowed us to really concentrate on our team build and our team roster, and we got better. And obviously that run to the Western Conference Finals was really, really meaningful. The way that we lost the game in the end, was really tough to take for everybody who was part of our team, our club, and our build towards that. And so obviously with a lot of fanfare, we went into Seattle this past weekend, and we really do believe that we've improved our roster again. We have another couple of pieces that where we continue to work on that we really do believe will strengthen our team and then get us to a point whereby we are competing for that silverware that everybody seems to be talking about inside of the media. So how times have changed from the underdog to being a contender. Going into Seattle as sort of the Western Conference Finals revisited last year, I think, was full of emotion for everybody. The fact that it was on national television again was incredibly compelling for our club and for our fans and for everybody who supports this club, everybody who loves this club. So, just to go to Seattle and be able to perform, in front of fans again in Seattle,
yes.
Was terrific for everybody. Now, our first half performance was fantastic. We took the game to them. Our high press, really worked wonderfully. If you take a look at percentage of ball possession, I think it was like 55-45, if I remember correctly. And then obviously, they got a very, very good goal at the beginning of the second half.
A wonder strike, really.
A wonder strike,
yes.
really. Out of nowhere. 9 times out of 10, I think that there was one stat that was only a 3% chance that that would go in. And then obviously Adrian threw a lot of players forward, and they beat us on the counterattack. And the result was 4-0. It really was not a 4-0 game.
No.
So now we turn our attention to Real Salt Lake and get our home pitch advantage going. Hopefully this weekend. And our season hopefully gets off to a really good start at home this weekend.
Yep, and you guys, if you're watching on the live stream, you're seeing some glimpses of the team taking the field and coming down the tunnel here to head on onto the pitch at Allianz Field. But, another thing I did want to touch on, and it's very important, I think, for the season opener in Seattle, was the patch that the players were wearing and that Seattle chose to wear as well. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of that for social injustice and why the team, the club, it was important to have that inclusion for the season opener in Seattle?
Yeah, we're at the epicenter.
Yep.
Minnesota is at the epicenter. Minneapolis, St. Paul is at the epicenter of, what we hope will be a dramatic shift in societal opinion against racism. And our players are a big piece of that. And we have a number of players of color. We have a number of black players on our roster, but we are probably one of the most diverse certainly sports franchises in this market, and certainly the league. I believe that we have 13 players from all nations right now, and diversity is very, very important to us. What is going on inside of our world really does need to change, and our players want to be a voice in that, and they came to us and said that we would like to wear the patch that we did. Prior to the Seattle game, we got approval from the league and wear a black armband in the memory of Dante Wright. When Seattle heard that we were going to, or trying to get approval for that through the league, they said, we want to be there with you. And then the photograph, I thought, was really compelling on the field of play before the game, where both teams linked arms in recognition of what I think our voice as a team, our voice as a league, the voice of sports can be in terms of being a significant player in the healing of our country and particularly this community at this particular time.
Well, and I think even with that throughout 2020 and all the trials and tribulations that had gone on in our society, and particularly in this community in Minneapolis and in Minnesota and St. Paul, but also then coming home to Allianz Field and welcoming fans back in the stands. There's a sense of unity, I think, when fans can come together, and that's sometimes what sports does. So again, we're going to be coming back to this stadium, welcoming back those fans into Allianz Field Saturday against Real Salt Lake, with the opportunity, hopefully, to be singing Wonderwall after the game. Real Salt Lake, a little extra rested. They're the only team that didn't play last weekend. But what is that going to feel like? That sense of unity, of bringing people back in and celebrating, hopefully, a victory together here at Allianz Field?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things going on right now. One is because of COVID, you used the word about 10 minutes ago, normalcy. So the question is, how can we get back to normalcy? And then obviously given the potential unrest, as we hear the Derek Chauvin trial verdict, what role can we play in that as well? And I think whatever normalcy, whatever definition you give to normalcy, whatever definition you give to helping with change inside of our community around societal change around racism, I think we do have a role to play. The question is, can we define that role and can we make it impactful? We want to be respected inside of this market, not only by our fans, by our community, by everybody who lives, works, and plays inside of this community. We want to be a player in all of that and make sure that our community is a much better place. The first step to that inside of our community is this Saturday when we play against Real Salt Lake, when our players walk out on that field and we have 4,100 people inside of the stadium, not 20,000, unfortunately, because of COVID. But we will get back to normal in terms of COVID-related issues, and we will help spread the message, and we will be an advocate for the abolishment of racism inside of our society as a club.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm guessing that those 4,100 fans are going to sound like 20,000 fans because the way Seattle was, it's same thing is that, they only had 7,000, 6,000 fans there. But it felt like, in my headset, that it felt like 40,000 fans in Seattle. So everyone's excited. We're excited to get going again. We're excited to bring you all the rest of the live training session that we have here. All the players are out on the field, and they're going to be participating in a full training session. So we're going to let you guys bust away and watch a little bit of that training. Hopefully I'm not sure if we have mics on there because it could be a little questionable with Adrian when he's giving instruction or when he's playing soccer tennis for that matter. But Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to see you back up here on Saturday as well, and it's going to be a fabulous day where the team could get back together with some fans here at Allianz Field.
Thank you, Kendra.
All right, and you guys can take it on out. We'll head out to training, a live look, and enjoy a little bit of the team practice out there on the turf. It looks beautiful. The sun is shining, as I said, and we're getting ready for Saturday. And welcome back to Loons Inside Training presented by BMW. I know you guys have been enjoying some really awesome footage of the team getting ready and set on Allianz Field, the beautiful grass out there. But I got to take a moment here. We got to have another special guest, another special interview. But don't worry, we will keep the training on in the background. We'll keep the cameras live. We'll have it on in the background so you can still see what's going on and how Adrian Heath is getting his club ready, his players ready for the upcoming home match against Real Salt Lake on Saturday. But now I'm lucky and honored to be joined by Chief Soccer Officer Manny Lagos. I just want to call you Minnesota soccer legend because you can't go anywhere in the state and really in the region or close to the globe without hearing the Lagos name and connected to soccer. But thank you for joining me here today. I want to get your first reaction on stepping into Allianz Field, into Stadium Club, looking at the grass, looking at the team out there, knowing that on Saturday it's going to be a home match against Real Salt Lake with fans in the stand. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I just got chills with you talking about it, and I really appreciate the words, Kendra. It's surreal every time I walk in the stadium and think about Minnesota, our community, and think about how so many people believe in the sport, believe in the club, and believe in the future of Minnesota soccer. And from our ownership group on down to the people that are watching today, it's beautiful here. I mean, we've had a year of this being so quiet, and I'm so excited for the preparation this week. Obviously, it's a big game, especially after the struggles in Seattle, for us to come back and do what we want to do here, which is, have great events on this amazing stadium.
Yeah, I mean, you and Chris and I were just chatting. We could probably talk for another hour about the game at Seattle and kind of what this season 2021 looks like going forward. But a couple updates from you. The youth development program, where does that stand? What can you tell people about the progress that's been made? And what are we looking at in the next 6 months, 9 months, 12 months for this program to kind of continue to build?
Well, I'm excited. I think we're looking at different channels of our club that we want to grow and build. And as we continue to build, first and foremost, the product and on the field, the first team and winning and going after trophies, certainly a reserve group in the youth space, we want to continue to evolve. And the league as a whole went a new direction with something called MLS is Next. That launched, but now had to be held because of COVID. So we're kind of still waiting for them to launch the league, which will probably happen midsummer. We'll really kind of launch into the fall post-COVID. And then how we as a community, we've really committed to trying to be more all-encompassing of trying to create pools of training, pools of players, partnerships with all of our great youth clubs for how can we, as Minnesotans, create an environment, expectation of development, an expectation that we want Minnesota players playing at Allianz Fields in 5 and 10 years. And to me, we're at a great point. We're right now where we've done tryouts, we've done partnerships. The kids have trained from January till now, I think more than I've ever seen a youth space train and work hard. And ironically, all of that training has had to be in Minnesota. And now as we kind of open up, as society opens up, we're excited for this summer of really building on what MLS Next is. And it's specifically at ages 15, 17, and 19. Collectively as a league, how can we get better at professional development for our players? And then in Minnesota, now Minnesota United, how can we at 15, 17, 19 continue to push and strive to develop pro soccer players?
Well, and we've heard the line, play the kids, the last couple years. And, MLS, I think, is finally getting to the point of just making those strides to the youth development through the academies in the past and now the youth development program with Minnesota United. And the hiring of Noel Quinn, how important was that and what has he been able to do? You talk about being all-encompassing. He's talked a lot about reaching out into all communities and all cultures to really kind of find that soccer talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great hire. I think he's somebody so well respected in the community. He's worked here for the last 15 years, both in the college game, the high school game, the youth game, and he's also striving. He's got coaching badges from all over the world, which to me shows he is still at a point where he wants to build and grow the development here in Minnesota for the good of Minnesota youth soccer players. And he's the perfect candidate that we need, because ultimately this is a challenge. This is a challenge that it's not just Minnesota United, it's our entire soccer community. We want to strive to be better. We want to strive to put professional players, not only at Minnesota United, but all over this country, and frankly, as the game becomes more global, all over the world. And so to me, raising the level of the game and the base in this community and what Noel, I think, will bring to the table, help us do that, it's massive. Because again, we're trying to do initiatives that will affect us in 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Well, and you talk about the importance of growing the game and kind of elevating the club, the hiring of Damian Rodin. What does that mean for this team? What is he going to do? And there's been some changes, some new hirings and additions on the training staff, on the sporting staff. What does he bring to the table for this club?
Well, again, it's another great channel that I fortunately get to work on with the club, and that's our sports science channel. And that's the servicing of the players. That's taking care of them in an all-encompassing way from a fitness psychological standpoint. So we can elevate our club, not only when a player gets here and they individually or as a group prepared to be on the field, but also that we're a destination for these guys that really understand that when you come to Minnesota United, when you come to Minnesota, you're going to have a great experience with your family. You're going to have a great experience as a single guy off the field. But what we can give you to improve yourself as a player, as a person, and then certainly the group to really step on the field and be ready to train. Damien, checks all the boxes. This is a guy that's worked for Man City. He's worked for Anderlecht. He's worked for a couple other big clubs in Europe. He's also worked for the Seattle Sounders in MLS. So he kind of knows what the challenges of this country are, and they're great. I mean, we have to travel all over the country, different time zones, prepare these guys to physically kind of battle in league play. And really hiring somebody like him is another step to us build out a channel that we think is incredibly important for us to be competitive, not only in the short term, but obviously, in the long term.
Well, you talk about being competitive, the constant raising of the bar for this club, especially, since entering MLS in 2017. So much has been made about stats, analysis, sports science. You see the trackers, the data that can be done now for these players and for these athletes. Where can you say that Minnesota United is as far as that is concerned, from a sports analysis, a stats analysis, kind of that scientific perspective of what the club is doing to continue to achieve that?
Sure. I mean, we have a data analytics department, and we want to continue to grow it. We do a lot of stuff in-house, although we obviously use services for algorithms and things that we want to try to build and grow out of.
Give an example, like in an algorithm, when people hear that, what does that mean?
So, for example, like we have like KPIs, key performance indicators for certain players that we want to do for whether it's their distance covered on the field and how that relates to the type of training session we have that week, or a distance covered on the field of player recruiting and how that relates to what type style Adrian wants to play or what type of player we want to go after and recruit. So it really is a all-encompassing building out how we want to improve in our scout and recruitment channel, and then our match day preparation and how we can tell a story this year where we can improve on last week and build on that story to make sure that we're one of the fittest teams in the league, and certainly using data analytics will help in that space.
I'm just kind of chuckling because I'm thinking, I feel really old when you talk about all that, because we had none of that information growing up, and just like the way that, teams and clubs can break down what a player is doing on an individual basis. Or, I remember on Mondays or Tuesdays, you'd go and run sprints because it was a fitness day, but now you don't know what was someone's load in the previous game. Just because someone played 90 minutes doesn't mean they worked as hard as someone else who played 90 minutes. And you can tailor that training session to what the player had accomplished in the match. So it's just incredible now, the things that they can do as we continue to watch the guys train on the screen behind us.
It is, and I would say that the cool thing is what the fans are seeing today, the training session, that really matters. The old school stuff does matter. The rapport that these guys make, how hard they train together, how hard they build up the connections of working together on the field, the preparation they do, all that is combined with the analytics.
Yes.
I always tell people, one is not taking over the other.
Yep.
We're just trying to create a culture where we can use that to help the guys build what they're doing right now, which is they got to train every day. They got to roll up their sleeves and make sure they're working hard to get ready for games.
It's funny though too, because there's got to be an accountability aspect with it too, because you can be like, Coach, I was hauling out there. I was training. I was playing for 90 minutes, and they're like, well, really? Because this, that, this, and this. What kind of meaningful running were you doing? But yes, ultimately, you got to get on the pitch and you got to do the right things and you got to work together. As soccer, more than any other sport, with the fluidity of it and the kind of the creativity that goes on the field. So moving on to the next thing, CONCACAF Champions League. So MLS teams 5 for 5 right now through. What does that mean for the league? What is that telling people about this league? And now, again, I think ultimately people are going to say you got to win the thing to really prove a point. But what does that mean for this league?
Well, I just think it's a great start to this tournament this year, and it's a great start to our clubs. Great job to them. Congratulations to just showing so well these first 2 weeks of this tournament. I think particularly some of the countries outside of Mexico that have really been even with us in terms of this competition. This year, we've really shown our quality, our depth, and these teams have really kind of pushed some of those countries that kind of did all right against us, that we're really much closer to Mexico now than we've ever been. And so I just think it's a great competition because it's kind of a barometer of where we are within the region. And certainly right now, Mexico and the U.S. and MLS and Liga MX are outstanding competitions. And both clubs within each league are growing exponentially. They have some big clubs that I think we still have to figure out a way to really catch. But I just love it because I think there's such a belief within MLS, belief within our fan base within this league, that we want to become the best in this region. And I feel that support on a national level. And I really hope someday that MNUFC is participating in it, because it would be with such pride for us to go and play against Liga MX teams in CONCACAF Champions League.
And then speaking of on the world stage, Emmanuel Reynoso broke into the MLS stage from a world perspective, coming from Boca Juniors, and now the addition of Ramon Avila to the club as well. Now Reynoso, I think you could see his quality right away. The second he stepped on the pitch last year, he continued it on in the Seattle match, and the high press and the nature of his ability and his ability to combine and find others. How do those two signings from a club like Boca Juniors, and also just Reynoso being already here and then helping maybe to get Ramon Avila over here, how does that come about? What does that mean for this club on that stage, in the world stage, getting players like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with the challenges of recruitment globally are tough. You know, it's almost like any other industry in Minnesota. You have to really make sure you're on point to sell everything you're doing, not just on the field, off the field. So we have to sell our community. We have to sell MLS versus big European clubs. We have to sell MLS versus Mexico. And then after that, I think it's really significant because we are an evolving club that is starting to become a destination. The word is getting out about not only the product in the field or our aspirations to win trophies, but also the experience that they're getting here, the environment of them wanting to come here to win, to live, to be a part of the project that we have. And then that's incredibly special. And I think Reynoso is significant, if you want to peel back a little bit, because of his age. Players his age tend to try to go to Europe, and that may still be an aspiration of his, but he looks at this as a place where he can get better. He may want to stay here. That's awesome, because right now we're in this together. But it's really significant at his age that he says, no, this is the best environment for the next phase of my career. And it was a very significant signing for us, because it ultimately opens up more and more players from that area of the world that are great at developing high-level talent. Will hopefully want to come knocking on our door and want to come be a part of our club.
We only saw a couple minutes of Ramon Avila the other night against Seattle, and it was late in the match, but I think you could already just see, I mean, what it was I think he was on for 3 minutes and had 2 shots, and, he's still trying to get game fit and all that stuff, but I think we're going to continue to see that chemistry evolve. But you talk about people wanting to come here, people wanting to stay here. Fred Emmings was the first homegrown signing, and then we bring in Patrick Weah. What does that mean to have a signing like that, of a Patrick Weah who's right here in your own backyard and chooses to stay here and sign on as homegrown?
I think it's really nice because, again, I still think we're a sleeping giant when it comes to youth soccer in this market. I still think we have to look at the positives of our amazing youth soccer community and all these clubs we have. I just think we have to galvanize and really get a little bit more intentional about, let's develop them for the first team and for the MNUFC on the field. And you've got 2 signings that show that we do have talent here, that we do have potential. And they've done great. I mean, Patrick has just been for a couple months, but he had a great preseason. The coaching staff is very excited. And Fred's done leaps and bounds. I mean, he is just right in there with the first team goalies, training every day, getting tons of reps. It's going to be an exciting couple of years for his development pathway, how we can now get maybe more game minutes for him and figure that out. But that's a great problem for us, because we love that. We want to figure out a way to continue to have these guys so they can get out there and play and represent the first team.
Yeah, I know when you and I were at training the other day, we were watching it, Patrick Weah. It's amazing just the learning curve, but how he's going to be able to experience that and grow in that first team environment, just leaps and bounds every time he steps on the pitch with this club. So thank you so much for joining us, Manny. I can't wait till Saturday. I cannot wait till, Real Salt Lake arrives at this stadium and there's fans coming back in that stands, and when the PA announcer says the gates are open, there's actually fans flooding in and filling the stands. I think 4,100 is going to feel and sound like 20,000 to get back in here.
It's going to be special. There's no doubt about it. It's maybe not where we want to be, but it's the reality that we're starting to move in a positive direction. And again, I'm so excited for the fans to feel a part of the challenges of the last year and how we've come out of it, the resiliency that this team has shown, the group has shown. And certainly it becomes a big game on the field competitively. We want to show that Seattle was a tough last 35 minutes.
Yep.
And that we want to get back out and get on the right track of the season and the story we want to tell this year.
Well, thank you, Manny.
Thank
Go
you.
and enjoy the rest of training.
All
Sit
right,
in the
thank you.
sunshine out there. And thank you all for joining us once again. We're going to take you back to live training so you can take another look at what Adrian Heath has the team doing out there, the club doing out there to get ready for Saturday's match at home here at Allianz Field against Real Salt Lake. Welcome back to Loons Inside Training presented by BMW in the Stadium Club at the beautiful, amazing Allianz Field. Well, we are lucky enough to bring you a very special guest, a very special interview. The gaffer joined Roger Bennett from Men in Blazers just a couple days ago to record this interview, and here you go.
This is Rog. I want to say up top, sending love to all Minnesotans during what is a difficult time, but it is a joy to be with Adrian Heath, the mighty Adrian Heath. It's just over 2 years since we played a live show at the Ordway to celebrate the opening of the Allianz. That was a different world, Adrian, but I fell in love with your city. Can't tell you how often during lockdown I've thought about having a Juicy Lucy at Matt's bar. I miss your city immensely. How are you holding up?
Well, as you said, Rod, it's been an incredible few years with everything that's gone on, not just on the field, but off the field as well for this city. And we all hoped that some of them days were behind us with what's been going on. But unfortunately, over the last few weeks, some of that's crept into our lives again. But we are, on a football side, I think we're all glad to be getting back together. Looks like we're going to have some people in the stadium, which is going to be wonderful. Our support is huge for this particular team. And, I can't wait for opening day next Saturday with 4,800 Minnesotans getting behind the team.
Yeah, your fan base, that's what struck with me from my time in your city. The passion, the commitment, the joy of being together around football, which to me, as an Evertonian, that's what football is about, community.
Yeah.
How are you feeling on the eve of a season when the Loons faithful, the dark clouds, the true North Elite and the rest are poised to return to your stadium?
Well, like everybody, it's the start of a new season, and obviously we had the disappointment of the opening day loss. But there's something about the home opener, isn't there? Getting back in your own stadium, familiar. It's been particularly good for us since we've been in there. The players' relationship with our fans, I think we've generated some of the best atmosphere within the MLS in a really short period of time. And we've missed them. And I know the players are really excited about the weekend. I know from the messages I've had from supporters, they are incredibly excited to get back in the Allianz Field this weekend. So it's we're all excited, Rod, and as I say, regarding the disappointment of the first weekend, I can't wait for this weekend where we get back to something that's more familiar to what we've been used to.
Fans give a building life, but a building can also shape the fan culture. And I'm fascinated to hear, in that first season, how did the Wonderwall Soak Stadium change the culture of football in Minnesota?
Well, I think it was one of them things that I used to say to people, you don't realize how important having your own stadium is. That's one of the things that's yours. Nothing can change that. And for some of these young kids, this will be the only stadium they ever watch Minnesota play in. And I don't think people in the beginning understood that. We come back from a culture, Rod, where Everton have been at Goodison for like 100 years. So it's an incredible feeling. And I know that when people came to our stadium, opposing managers, I'd have a drink with them after I started that tradition of inviting them into the manager's office after a game, win, lose or draw. And the one thing that they all spoke about was the incredible atmosphere within the stadium. And we have to build upon that. And that's the obligation we have as a coaching staff and the players, to turn up and to make that the fortress it is. Because if we can do our job, that goes in tandem with the Wonderwall and the atmosphere we generate. And as I say, you know, we've missed them, and I know they've missed us.
What was it like for you to coach in a stadium for a team that is fan first without fans during the pandemic?
Well, that's one of them things that we have to, as a coaching staff, it's one of the things you have to impress on the supporters, because we know, on the players, because we know, and we've all been there. When times are hard, the fans can rally you, they can get you going. You know, suddenly there's a block shot, somebody gets a corner from nowhere. And these little moments with the crowd interaction can change the course of a game. You've got to do that internally now. You've got to do that from within. And that was what we kept saying to the players. We now have to force this. This has to be player-led, not the crowd-led. We now have to get to this stage where if we need something to change, you have to be the individual. Don't wait for somebody else. Somebody has to step up and give the team a spark, and that's what you have to do.
Talking of fans, Everton Football Club, Adrian, we got to touch on them. We won the Merseyside derby for the first time in over a decade.
Yeah.
First win at Anfield since 1999. Joy, tears. How have you experienced this season? Partial signs of Everton returning to the days of yore under Mr. Carling.
Yeah, it's typical for our team, isn't it? We get ourselves in that position and we go, okay, are we daring to dream? It could be top four, and then the sort of wheels come off a little bit, and we haven't won in 3 or 4 games, and you know it puts us back in there. But I think the one thing for me is there is hope, Rog. I think we have a chairman now who can buy. We've got a coach that we know if he has the right materials, he can win. So the fact that we've got this incredible stadium now on the horizon, I think everything's pointing in the right direction. I just hope we stay calm and positive and don't get carried away, and let Carlo finish the job, finish the plan, and gradually, a little bit like we've done, incrementally get better each transfer window until we're at a stage where we can eventually have a squad of players that can compete.
It's crazy days, though. We have to admit it's been a dark 24 hours. All it took was one derby loss, Adrian, and Liverpool bolt the Premier League. They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
They know what's coming, Rod. You know what's round the corner. The Blues are on the way back, and they don't want it. Let's get rid of them. Let's go into another league.
Oh, it's like a kid flipping the Monopoly board when they're getting beat. I mean, it's a crazy time. As someone that played in England understands the connection between fans and club, which is so different to American sports franchises, which team owners are able to. I can't believe this when they're like, going to move from St. Louis to LA, and everyone's like, that's fine. They own the team. They can do what they want. It's very different in England.
Okay, I don't think there's been anything that's wound me up. I love the game. Always have done. I always will. But I love Stoke City, my first club. I love Port Vale, the little club within Stoke-on-Trent, who people don't know about. But I know how much that team means to the people where they're from. I said to you before, it's like the glue that holds the community together. It's more than a football club. You know, when in the pandemic at its worst, I know what the Everton in the community does. What it does for the local community.
Yeah.
Feeding players. It's a place for people to have their vaccines done. They're more than football teams. I've got one bit of information to all their American owners. Stay in America and don't go back to England, because I don't think they will understand what's about to be witnessed and what's waiting for them when they do get back.
You know, you and I both know pissing off a couple of 100,000 Scousers rarely ends well. But you've said it absolutely true. It's what truly saddens me over the past 24 hours. It's not the Evertons of this world that I feel a deep sorrow for. You mentioned Port Vale. For me, it's the Grimsbys, the Cheltenhams, the Tranmeres, the tiny clubs who are going to be truly kneecapped. For generations, these clubs have meant everything to their fan bases, the memory, the employees who work there, and the fact that in self-interest, these clubs are going to be pushed out. That, to me, is the human darkness. But let's be positive. I want to stay back with the mighty Minnesota United, a team that you talk about the incremental steps, you know, early in the existence, the beginning, teething problems, but then the Loons thrive the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to take that incremental approach and not get too impatient on each step of the journey?
Well, you hope the most important people within this, the ownership group, they're the ones that you speak, because it's easy for a coach, Roger. One word we always use is patience and sticking to the plan. But if they don't, because of outside influences, because it's very difficult now in the world of social media to listen to all the sound that's coming from the outside, make knee-jerk reactions. You know, I went through it down in Orlando, don't forget. We had the 3-year plan, a year and a half to decide, well, let's rip that one and start again. But guess what? 8 years later, they still hadn't made the playoffs. You know, so it doesn't work. And I said to the owners here, let's see where we are at the end of the 3rd year. And fortunately for me, they understood that. They've let this plan unfold.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing at Orlando City, a club, a city, a fan base. I'm laughing at the notion that you're like, we're going to embark on a 3-year plan, right? Yeah, I'm all in. And then but it gets ripped up after a year and a half. And you're like, well, what happened to the 3-year plan? It is hardest for a coach because you know that from experience. You know, you can say it's an incremental step by step, but the coach is always, isn't it always hardest for the coach?
Well, it's always hardest for the coach because we live and die each weekend by a result. And I know with the social media now, what it is, Rod, you know, people like yourselves who have an opinion, these people listen.
We're the worst.
No, I'm not saying you're the worst, but people do listen. You know, I've heard what they're saying on social media, and it does affect people. But I think if you were to look over the course and the history of football clubs, the teams that change very, very often, unless you've got the backing of somebody like Roman Abramovich, who at Chelsea can do it, because he can then also give the next manager another 200 million to make it change. We were never in that position. We had the Allianz Arena to build. We had the training facility. And now we've started to invest in the team. I don't think it's a coincidence, Rog. We've got better players on the field and we're suddenly doing better.
You know, I do send out a weekly tweet, Adrian, which is Adrian Heath is a demigod and Minnesota United are blessed to have him. But I'm fascinated by how you see MLS right now with the American wave of young players flocking to Europe. Yeah. Is that inspiring and a testament to the quality, or does it feel like a layer of talent has gone, just evaporated?
Well, there's a bit of both, Roger. I think the most important thing is this is a really exciting time. If you're a young kid now, you can conceivably play well in your academy, wherever you are in America, and that dream, which was always there, but it was so far in the distance and maybe going to Europe, that's not so far away now. And I know from the amount of people back home who call me, who send me emails saying, hey, been really impressed with a lot of these young kids who are leaving America. So the eyes of the world, certainly in Europe, a lot of them big clubs are certainly over here now. So it's a great incentive for the younger kid. But I also think people in South America, we've got Reynoso, one of the best number 10s within the league. He came at 24 from Boca Juniors. That would never have happened in the past. You know that, Rod. The days of it being the retirement home, the holiday home for aging South American stars is long gone. It's long gone. And we are starting now to attract the best young talent of Central and South America.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Reynoso. I mean, young Americans leave, veteran South Americans arrive, real talent. Ramon Abia playing alongside Reynoso. I want to know, what's it like for you personally, a lad from Stoke, to manage South Americans? Not just the language barrier, but the mentality. How is it different?
Well, I think the most important thing is, one thing we've always said, it's a universal language. My Spanish, after a couple of years at Espanol, is enough to get by. Culturally, I think it's important that we explain to these players a lot of the differences. Like, people don't, it's one of them crazy things. People don't realize how big America is until they actually get here and start traveling. You know, when we were in Orlando, we go, yeah, it's a 7-hour journey to go and play in Vancouver. You know, that's like playing in Russia if you're in England. You know, so all them differences, the weather, 110 degrees maybe down in Houston, and then it's snowing in Utah went a couple of weeks later, and all them little differences, they all add up. But the most important thing for me is, and I can only speak of these couple of South Americans, when you just mentioned Avila, you just mentioned Reynoso, absolutely been a pleasure to work with. Professional, want to win. The one thing that sticks out, they want to be successful.
Your team have been hailed by many as dark horse contenders this season. Tough opening weekend aside, what do you believe is possible? Adrian, what's the goal?
The goal will always be, can we improve on what we were? And we have done. But as I said to the players, you know, in the run-up to the opening game of the season, for us to be better than we were last year, we're probably going to have to win something. Well, that has to be the aim. We proved and we've got better. We proved last year we could compete with any team in the MLS. Now, you know, we were that close away from going to the MS Cup final. You know, the outbreak of the last game in Seattle, 2-0 up with 14 minutes to go. And we all know what happened. But in the cold light of day, when I look back at where we were to what we are now, Rog, it's been upward trajectory. We have to keep that going. We have to keep that momentum. And that's up to me and the coaching staff and the ownership group to keep pushing the envelope, opening the envelope and pushing it even more. And that's what we'll continue to do.
As we sit here, Agent, we are days away from fans about to return to your tiny jewel box of a stadium. Can you put into words for us what it's going to feel like for you personally? You know, the club, the players, you're all human beings. We often forget that about our athletes. But what do you believe it's going to feel like to look up at the fans behind the goals, post Loons victory, and hear them bellow out Wonderwall again at Allianz Field?
Well, I think it'll be quite emotional. I think one of the things that we said when we walked out in Seattle at the weekend, and I think there was only 7,000 there, you could see a few people like tearing up because it was like, hey, we're on our way home. We're on the final stretch of this incredible year and a bit that we've had. I know how much football is to the supporters. Without it, Rog, we haven't got the game. So to get them people back in, supporting the team that they love, the team that they spend money on, out of their hard-earned money, to come and watch you to play. We have an obligation to them. I always say it's not just me throwing a little bit of toffee out there, but this is who you play for. You know, we're the fortunate ones who get to represent the people of Minnesota, and we should never forget that. And like the players, I'll be incredibly excited to come 7 o'clock on Saturday.
And to hear Wonderwall again, Agent.
Oh, yeah, that would be incredible. You know, it's an incredible tradition. You know, hats off to all the ones who started it, but I know from speaking to all of the coaches and players, a lot of them now, you know, they wait on the side and have a little sly peek at what it's like when all the players run towards the Wonderwall, and it's a great tradition, and let's hope we can hear it this weekend.
I hope you hear it this weekend. I hope you hear it many, many times. May that song ring out loud, joyously. May it reignite that connection between you, your city, your players, your club, and your delirious fan base. Adrian Heath, you're a remarkable man. You give us so much joy. Give me so much joy watching you thrive in America. Good luck, mate.
Cheers, Rog. Anytime, you know that.
Thanks, man. Courage. This is Rog. I want to say up top, sending love to
And welcome back once again to Loons Inside Training presented by BMW. Once again, in the beautiful Stadium Club of Allianz Field, getting ready for Saturday's home opener against Real Salt Lake. The club is still continuing to train on the pitch, but we do have another very special guest, a very special interview. MLSsoccer.com, Matthew Doyle. Cal had a great conversation with him just yesterday. Take it away, Cal.
Yeah, thanks, Kendra. Really appreciate it. Now, we're all about opinions here at Minnesota United, so we thought we'd get somebody on who's never shy of casting his, and that's why we like him. Joining us from MLSsoccer.com, or is it MLS.com these days? We're not entirely sure. MLS journalist Matt Doyle joins us from New York City. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think after week 1, we're going back to MLSsoccer.com, but we'll see what happens in week 2, and then maybe it'll be back to MLS.com. But it's all up in the air. It depends on how the Loons do. That's the rule.
Exactly. We'll wait and see. Look, Matt, a very warm welcome to you. You followed this league for a very, very long time and seen a lot of teams come into it. Be honest, when Minnesota United started, those first 2 years in particular, and you see them go on and reach the MLS's back semi-final, the Open Cup final, Western Conference final, did you ever expect such progression from Minnesota United?
Yes and no, right? It's MLS. It's a league where parity still is kind of king. So there's always a chance to have a remarkable one-season turnaround. I think what shocked me last year about the run to the run in the Western Conference playoffs, and of course in MLS's back tournament playing so well, was that it came without Ike Opara. Because I was a big believer that the turnaround from 2018 to 2019 was in large part to do with Ike. I think I had him on my MVP ballot, not just Defender of the Year, but MVP. So to play as well as they played last season felt like just a massive statement about the overall quality of the roster as well as the squad depth. So it's not shocking because over the course of 4 years, I mean, a lot can change in this league, and we've seen that time and again. But to do that without the guy who I thought was the team's best player in 2019, when they actually did have that one season turnaround, it was a remarkable year. It turned in the midst of a 2020 year that was, I think, hell for everybody. The Loons kind of stood out with the way they were able to come together and get results.
And during an impeccably insane last 6 months, Matt, they've only gotten added to that roster as well over the course of the last couple of weeks in particular. Has there been anybody that stands out to you in terms of someone that could really make a difference for this team?
Well, I mean, the hope is that Abila will be that guy. Given how well he performed for Boca Juniors over the last 3 years, but especially this winter or summer, considering it was Argentina, he kind of has to be that guy. And one of the funny things is coming to Minnesota United, Adrian Heath was kind of known as the center forward whisperer, and he had done so well both in Orlando City, both at the MLS level and USL level, and he's had a bunch of guys come through the door to play that number 9 position, and nobody's really made it their own. When you go out and you get a guy with the pedigree like this, you expect him to make it his own, even if there are other additions coming, and it looks like there might be. You would expect, and certainly I expect, Abdullah to show his quality on the field, and we got some of that in the first game against Seattle. I think they would have liked if he had hit the back of the net on that nice shot that he stung from distance, but just having the confidence to rip that, and he very much looks the part. So I think there should be some high expectations in the fan base.
Also helps as well, Matt, that he's got a player that is legitimately an MVP candidate in Emmanuel Reynoso behind him.
Yeah, it does. He is one of the most fun players in the league to watch. And I mean, I go all the way back to day one with MLS, and the early days of the league was dominated by guys like Carlos Valderrama and El Diablo, Marco Echeverri, who are these classic South American number 10s, guys who maybe don't cover the most ground, but they are magic in terms of their vision and their touch and their inventiveness. And to me, Bebelo Reynoso is cut from that exact same cloth. He is a throwback player, and that's the soccer I grew up with. That's the soccer I fell in love with. And to see him on the field for it's like being in a time machine. But then he goes out and he's doing it against these very modern teams that are pressing him, that are playing a higher line, that are playing a much different game than what we saw 25 years ago. And we saw how effective he could be even in the midst of that. So I'm jazzed by it. And, and he's part of like a bigger movement of that type of playmaker in MLS now, like last year's MVP, Alejandro Pazuello, obviously the MLS Cup MVP, Lucas Zelarayan, a very similar player. He's in that group. Like MVP, those are letters you can use when talking about Bebelo Reynoso.
From South America to North America, Matt, one individual who impressed during a rather disappointing Olympic qualification campaign for the United States was Hassani Dotson, drawing rave reviews from just about every corner of the world. What's his ceiling? How good can this kid be, Matt?
Yeah, I still don't know. And it's one of those things where, I mean, until you see him starting at one position week after week after week, it's tough to peg it. And the other thing with American soccer and Canadian soccer, like, guys tend to develop later, just because the system is not as robust here as it is in other parts of the world. This is especially true, I think, for guys who go through 4 years of college, which Hassani did. But we've seen him give good minutes at both fullback slots. He played the wing this weekend. It was fine. As a number 8, though, a guy who sort of goes everywhere and destroys as much as he creates, kind of in the mold of like what Artur does for Columbus Crew. I think he could be that type of player. And you're talking maybe not quite best 11 caliber, but in that discussion. But he's going to get a chance to play there this year. And when he does, he has to make the point. He has to take the decision out of Adrian Heath's hands and make the decision with his play.
And just finally, Matt, I think it's fair to say the underdog approach may not necessarily work this year for Minnesota United. So with that in mind, what do you feel is a good season for the Loons?
Progress based upon last year. First of all, can they look like the team they were down the stretch and in the playoffs? And it's a big question because it's hard to keep that level for 34 games. I think it's a lot easier for teams to find that month, 2-month hot streak and ride that a little bit and then take the foot off the gas. With Minnesota, if you end up with 55, 60 points, somewhere around there, then they've played really well for a long time. Even if they have a disappointing playoff run, and the playoffs are a crapshoot. So I genuinely wouldn't hold it against them if they did, as long as they had that type of consistent week after week showing in the regular season. And just as someone who's been a fan in these stadiums before, I saw a lot of miserable soccer from the Metro Stars. It's just like, why am I even going to this game? Then the couple of years that team had where they were good week after week after week, it like changes your life. It changes how you structure your life. And to give the fan base that much joy over the course of 7 or 8 months, that's how I judge a team. And I think that for Minnesota United, if they can bring that joy on the field and give it to the fan base as well, that is a successful season, no matter what happens in the postseason.
Wonderful. MLS journalist Matt Doyle, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Kindred St. Aubin, the floor is yours.
All right, a special thank you to all of you watching and listening today, of course, and our special guests. We had Manny Lagos, we had Chris Wright, Roger Bennett, Adrian Heath, and Matthew Doyle right there from MLSsoccer.com with Cal Williams. So we cannot wait to see you back here at Allianz Field, whether it's on Saturday against Real Salt Lake or another game down the line as we continue to welcome fans back. Cheer on your Loons from home if you have to. MinnesotaUnited.com, MNUFC.com for all the information. We are going to continue on now with a live look at training, but thank you all for joining us today. Loons Inside Training presented by BMW.